Good morning. Morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene. My name is Phyllis O'Neill. I use the pronouns she and her, and I am your worship associate this morning. If today is your first time with us, we'd love to get to know you. Right after the service, you're invited to our welcoming room, which is at the front entrance on the 13th Avenue side. If you're online, the link to the visitor form is being dropped into the chat now. As you enter the sanctuary, and at any point during the service, you can write your joys and sorrows in the book, light a candle, or place a stone in the water. Those joining from home can write prayers of joys and sorrows in the chat, which will be open until the start of the sermon. And during the week, you can go to the pastoral care portal on our website and let our ministers know if you need some support. We gather in worship to find meaning and to live more deeply. Worship creates connections within, among, and beyond us, calling us to our better selves, calling us to live with wisdom and compassion. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your image of the holy, we're glad you're here. We light the chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, with words from Victoria Weinstein. The church is a body. May this body breathe and be together in the spirit of hope. May it feel held by comfort. Those who seek consolation, may they find it in the solace of this moment. The church is a body. It's as strong as the people who have gathered within its walls. It's the power of all they dreamed of and all that they have done. The church is a body. It is as vulnerable as the most newborn and untried of all its members. It's ancient, and it is ever new. The church is a story. It's the story of lives that are interwoven, brought together in this place and this time for the simple purpose of caring for one another and helping one another along the arduous path from birth to death. The church is a vision. It's a vision of unity amid diversity. It's a vision of reverence for all of creation. It's a vision that beckons us beyond the concerns of our own skins. In the silence, may we abide as one body in the spirit of faith, hope, and love. That is the story and the vision of this church. And now, let us say together the words of our mission, which affirm our shared purpose. Empowered by love, we transform ourselves and serve our world.
Sometimes our flame goes out, and we need a little help relighting and finding our light. Good morning, everyone. Good Sunday morning. My name is Youngsun, and I use the pronouns she and her. And I have been honored to serve this congregation for exactly 1 year. You also notice that it's Kieran's first birthday, and from now and forevermore, my service here and Kieran's birthday will be always linked. In the course of this past year, we have welcomed 27 new members to this congregation, and today we welcome the latest group of newcomers. You know, whenever we do this ritual, we all have a chance to reflect on our own relationship with the Unitarian Universalist faith. The free and responsible search for truth and meaning can be an arduous path, no less than the one from birth to death. It doesn't allow any of us to sit back and passively receive what is handed to us by tradition or by authority. Because we believe in open revelation and the process of transformation and renewal, we are always asking questions, always lifting up rocks, sometimes tossing them aside, sometimes rearranging them in new ways. Even our beloved 7 principles are designed to be re-examined every 15 years so that they don't become weighty slabs of concrete, but continue to serve us well. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, are right in the middle of what could be the most significant update to these principles that we've ever had. Even though the free church tradition goes way, way back, the modern UU faith is only about 60 years old. Think about the incredible changes that the world has gone through in those years. Have our principles kept pace? Does the language of those principles reflect the foundational values held by today's members and the ones who are now entering? Come, let us celebrate the renewal that new members and new questions bring to our faith. Come, let us worship together. That was so much fun. Can we do that again? So several times a year, we formally welcome new members. These are new friends who have taken part in classes, or maybe they've transferred their membership from another UU community, and they have said yes to being an active member of this one. Their stories and their photos are going to be printed in the weekly newsletter, the Weekly Connection, so please read those as they are published, and just make a special effort to greet them, say hello, and get to know them. So I'd like to invite our newest members to please come up and just make a little line right here in front of the pulpit. So we've got Zephyr Burton, Kathleen Brooks, LaDonna Seeley, Janice Silvestri, Ken Newton, Ann Mahler, Heidi Gould, Stephanie Dorman, just called in sick today. She would definitely have been here. Chantal Baldwin, and Patricia Mullen. Hello, everybody. Jean Whitley and Robin Whitley and Stephanie Dorman and Don Woods are the 4 people who also joined, but for one reason or another just couldn't be with us today. We will recognize them at a later date. And I want to thank this wonderful membership team, Sharon and Peggy and Amy and all of their volunteers for helping to welcome and guide our newcomers. So, you are being presented with all kinds of goodies. You've got the pocket guide to Unitarian Universalism, which will answer all of your questions. You've got an official membership certificate and a beautiful hand-painted chalice for your use at home. When you signed the membership book of this free church, you did not sign on to a set of particular beliefs, but you entered into a sacred promise, a covenant. Well, actually 2 covenants. The first one is the one that binds the UU church in Eugene to all the other UU churches, congregations, societies, fellowships around the world promising to affirm and promote our principles. And then the second is the UUCE, Covenant of Right Relations, which binds individual members to this church in an agreement about the way we relate to one another. I just want to make a quick note for those who are really paying attention to what's going on. You know that we started last year a process of rewriting and updating that covenant. We are 95% done, and so it'll be coming this fall. And now Board President Daniel Blades will lead us in the reading of our UUCE covenant.
Good morning, I'm Daniel Blades. My pronouns are he, him, and I am the president of your Board of Trustees and a natural noisemaker. So, on behalf of the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene, I welcome you into membership. We rejoice that you are joining us on this journey of spiritual transformation and service to our world. Now, I invite everyone to say together our covenant of right relations. We covenant to build a religious community guided by respect and sustained by our principles. We will listen appreciatively, speak with care, express gratitude, honor our differences, and assume good intentions. We will communicate directly, honestly, and compassionately, particularly when we are in conflict. When we hurt one another, we will ask for forgiveness and make amends. And when we are hurt, we will try to forgive and reconnect in a spirit of right relationship. In celebration of the common mission that unites us, we will abide by this covenant. May all who join find a truly welcoming community, and may all of us find renewal in one another's presence.
We have been practicing a meditation from the Buddhist tradition called Metta Bhavana. Metta is the Pali word meaning loving kindness, and bhavana simply means cultivation. We are cultivating loving kindness. We begin by directing loving kindness toward ourselves, because as the Dharma teaches, searching in all directions with one's full awareness, one finds no one dearer than oneself. For some of us, it takes a great deal of cultivation to find this truth and to truly enjoy the company of self. As you are willing and able, find a comfortable position. Close your eyes if you're not too sleepy this morning. Otherwise, keep them halfway open. Notice the breath that comes in. Notice the breath that goes out. Bring attention to yourself. Fill your heart with compassion and love for yourself, for you are worthy to be loved. When we feel more positive, accepting, kind, and patient toward ourselves, we can then be more compassionate and loving toward others. And so say to yourself, may I be happy. May I be well. May I be at ease. And now bring to your mind your friends, your family, your loved ones. All of the compassionate love that you generate for yourself, pour out to them. This morning, I want to lift up our friends in this spiritual community who are in hospital or recovering at home. I'm happy to report that Bob Moss had a successful open heart surgery this week, and we continue to send prayers to him and his wife, Carolyn. Let's also bring to mind all who need extra love and support today. Those struggling with financial issues, friends dealing with anxiety and depression and other mental health concerns. Many times it's not obvious the pain and sorrows our friends are carrying. And so with their faces in our minds, let's say to them, may you be happy. May you be well. May you be at ease. And now expand that circle of loving kindness and care. Expand it to all of our neighbors, all of our kin, human and otherwise, here in this city, in our state, in our country, in our world. For we are one on this tiny blue dot. We bring to mind everyone suffering under tyranny and war, the billions impacted by flood, fire, deadly heat. Let us send out our cultivated loving kindness and say to them, may you be happy. May you be well. May you be at ease. And finally, if I have hurt anyone knowingly or unknowingly, in thought, in word, or in deed, I ask for their forgiveness. And if anyone has hurt me knowingly, unknowingly, in thought, word, or deed, to the best of my ability, I extend my forgiveness. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.
I have two readings for you today. The first is by Robert Walsh. Did you ever think there might be a fault line passing beneath your living room? A place in which your life is lived in meeting and in separating, wondering and telling, unaware that just beneath you is an unseen seam of great plates that strain through time, and that your life, already spilling over the brim, could be invaded, sent off in a new direction, turned aside by forces you were warned about, but not prepared for. Shelves could be spilled out, the level floor set at an angle, in some seconds shaking. You would have to take your losses, do whatever must be done next. When the great plates slip and the earth shivers and the flaw is seen to lie in not what you trusted most, look not to more solidity, to weighty slabs of concrete poured or strength of cantilevered beam to save the fractured order. Trust more the tensile strands of love that bend and stretch to hold you in the web of life that's often torn but always healing. There's your strength. The shifting plates, the restive earth, your room, your precious life, they all proceed from love, the ground on which we walk together. The second reading is by Powell Davies. None of our private world is big enough for us to live a wholesome life in. We need the wider world of joy and wonder, of purpose and venture, of toil and tears. What are we, any of us, but strangers and sojourners forlornly wandering through the nighttime, until we draw together and find the meaning of our lives in one another, dissolving our fears in each other's courage, making music together, and lighting torches to guide us through the dark. We belong together. Love is what we need, to be love and to love.
Bill Sinkford was president of the UUA from 2001 to 2009. Now freshly retired, he addressed this year's General Assembly in Portland, Oregon. Half joking, he said that Unitarian Universalism has always been in one kind of identity crisis or another. We're always wrestling with the question of how to explain ourselves to other people. What is at the center of our faith? What holds us together? Who is present and who is not? How can we articulate our values? And how can we more wholeheartedly belong to one another? And because these questions are alive and present with us, the answers that served us yesterday need to be tested again and again in a new day. A religious tradition that encourages open and continuous wondering can at once be liberating and a little bit exhausting. It can leave us wanting something to hold on to. And maybe that's why we've latched on so strongly to our 7 principles. We've made posters and banners of them. Both of our hymnals are organized around the principles and sources. There's a framed copy of them right outside my office door. There's a kids version of the 7 principles. There's a young adult version that's suitable for social media. Some congregations have written songs or affirmations based on the 7 principles. And we've printed thousands of these bookmarks. You can have one. You know, sometimes we will shove these in people's hands when they ask us, what is a Unitarian Universalist? And if we haven't taken Linda Krenicke's really excellent elevator speech workshop, we don't know what else to say, but here, read this. To some, these principles are a revelation. They had never seen anything like this in the previous religious experiences that they've had. No church, no synagogue, no masjid ever had principles like this. And then to others, these are an inoffensive set of statements that almost anyone could sign on to, but certainly not powerful enough for what the 21st century asks of us. Whatever your opinion, the principles have provided a framework for our UU identity since the very creation of our modern faith in 1961. That year, the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America came together in a consolidation, and they created the very first set of principles. And those, of course, arose out of the experiences and visions of those people, the people who held power at that time. Through the decades, many amendments were proposed by UUs who had been excluded in that first round of discussions. And a major rework of the principles took place in 1987. Our gratitude goes to the Women and Religion group that did a lot of the heavy lifting in those decades. So, you can find this covenant in your hymnals. If you've got a hymnal with you and you want to follow along, it's in the first couple of pages. And it says, "We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And finally, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Today, we are being called to wrestle with this question. Do these principles enable congregations like ours to be a relevant and a powerful force for spiritual and moral growth, for healing and justice? For years, there's been active discussion about amending our first principle to include non-human life. The fifth principle, the one about the use of democratic process, as well as the seventh about the interconnected web, those have also been up for really big discussions. How democratic are we really in our processes, and what does it mean to be part of the interdependent web? Back in 2017, the Black Lives of UU organizing collective, known as BLUE, encouraged the addition of an eighth principle to signal our commitment to the dismantling of white supremacy. And UUCE is one of the congregations who early on affirmed this eighth principle. We are not the same people as the ones who held conversations in the 1970s and in the 1980s and in the 1990s. We have our own questions, and the answers that served our faith yesterday are not necessarily the ones that are going to serve us tomorrow. The principles that I just read are written into the UUA bylaws and can be found in Article 2 of those governing documents. And that's why this whole process is called the Article 2 Study Commission. A group of dedicated volunteers has been collecting input from all of us, and they will be filing or reporting on their final conclusions this January. And then at our next General Assembly in June 2023, which will be held in Pittsburgh and online, we, the member congregations, are going to vote on those changes. It's a really big deal. So again, after coffee hour today, we'll gather back in here and on the Zoom coffee hour link at 11:30 so we can collect all of your input and send it to the study commission. Okay, if you're new today and feeling a little confused about bylaws and Article 2 and all of these dates, there are just two things that I would like you to remember. First, the principles are not personal. Unlike the Apostles' Creed or the Buddhist precepts, for example, which start with the word I and are very personal, the UU principles begin with the word we. They are meant to be promises of cooperative action among the member congregations, and they acknowledge what the great church planter A. Powell Davies said: none of our private worlds is big enough for us to live a wholesome life in. None of our private worlds is big enough. We need the wider world of joy and wonder and purpose and venture, toil and tears. Even as we exercise our right of conscience, we do it in relationship. As we search for truth and meaning, we do it responsibly, in conversation with one another and with regard for other beings. The second thing to keep in mind about the principles is that they are not an assertion of belief or creed, and they are not to be a statement for all time throughout the ages. We are to hold them as if we know what the poet is trying to teach us, that there might be a fault line passing underneath our living room, a place in which our lives are lived in meeting and separating, in wondering and telling. Think about how much the world has changed since 1987, the last big revision, or 1995, when we added earth-centered religion to our list of sources. Think of how much the world has changed since 2020. How have you changed? In what ways have you expanded your consciousness, increased your understanding of others, deepened your spiritual life, enlarged your capacity to love? As a religious movement, we have increasingly centered the voices of LGBTQIA+ folks, persons living with disabilities, Black and Indigenous UUs, people of all races and ethnicities, UUs from different classes and different backgrounds. Some are finding these changes so unsettling that they have been pushing back pretty hard. They claim that what we're engaged in here is excessive political correctness, overreach by our national office in Boston, and a misuse of critical race theory. It is completely natural to want to cling on and hold on to things that are familiar, and to reject all of these changes coming. Especially when we've gone through so much these last couple of years. Turning, though, to the poet once again, we are reminded that when the great plates slip and when the earth shivers, look not to more solidity, to the weighty slabs of concrete poured, or to the strength of cantilevered beam to save the fractured order. No. Trust more in the tensile strands of love. In its charge to the Article 2 Study Commission, the UUA board cited a very interesting piece of research that was done about us, about Unitarian Universalists. And that research said, UUs ranked love as an instrumental value and mature love as a terminal value more highly than respondents from any other religious group. And yet the word love is missing from our 7 principles. And even though love has been an animating force for both Unitarians and Universalists since the very beginning, you remember William Ellery Channing, right? In his heretical sermon that defined American Unitarianism for the very first time, he claimed that Jesus, while not being divine, was the full expression of God's expansive love. And that love is the central message of the Christian Bible. And the Universalist, Hosea Ballou, preached that God is love. And because God is love, there could be no such thing as eternal hell. Amen. And yes. And because God is love, the whole idea of substitutive atonement, which means that God requires a blood sacrifice to atone for human sin, could not be true. For a long time, we have all understood justice to mean love in action. Justice is what love looks like in the public square. Thanks to Dr. Cornell West for that powerful imagery. So the UUA board's charge to the study commission explicitly states that our commitment to personal, institutional, and cultural change rooted in anti-oppression, anti-racism, and multiculturalism values and practices, that is rooted in love. We therefore charge this commission to root its work in love as a principal guide in its work, attending particularly to the ways that we and our root traditions have understood and articulated love and how we have acted out of love. I think we're on a really good path, friends. In the year 2000, on the occasion of the 15th anniversary of these modern principles, the one on the bookmark, historian Warren Ross reminded us that even well into the 20th century, Unitarians were reciting these words in church. We believe in the fatherhood of God, the brotherhood of man, the leadership of Jesus, salvation through character, and the progress of mankind onward and upward forever. And while we may cringe at some of this language now, those words represented a radical liberal faith. Those words represented people who were sitting in the pews at that time who were presumably as open-minded and dedicated to truth and freedom as we are. For those of us who have only known these 7 principles, it's kind of hard to think that we may not have them, at least not in this form, because they really match the rainbow colors well, right? And yet, what we will put our faith in and what we will continue to have trust in is the process of transformation and renewal that we observe every day in the natural world. And we will hold fast to the eternal power of love that sustains us all. May it be so. Amen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now, my friends, go forth into your day with these words from Universalist minister Olympia Brown, who was the first woman to ever be ordained in the United States. Stand by this faith. Go on finding ever new applications of its truth and new enjoyments of its contemplations, always trusting in the one God which ever lives and loves. Go in peace, my friends.